بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على أفضل المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه الطيبين الطاهرين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي وبعد. Welcome back. This is the last episode of the series, The Generation of Salahuddin, between Knights and Scholars. And last time we saw one, I would call it epic battle, which is the Third Crusade, where Salahuddin, after opening Jerusalem, liberating Jerusalem, had to face the wrath of Europe, where Europe sent the best of its troops under the leadership of all the kings of Europe. And we saw how Salahuddin faced Richard, the Lionheart, and Philip Augustus, and Frederick Barbarossa, with hundreds of thousands of fresh crusaders coming on almost a daily basis. And a central battle happened around the city of Akka, if you remember. That was the beachhead for them to land. And Salahuddin, he had a garrison inside of Akka, like, remember, 3,000 people. And then the Franks came, the Crusaders surrounded the city, and Salahuddin surrounded them. And battle started for almost like more than 2 years, right? And despite the chivalry and the bravery of Salahuddin and his men, no matter how many times they win those battles, the reinforcements coming from Europe was so much. To the extent that after 2+ years, the city ran out of supplies and ran out of even weapons to fight with. And at that point, we saw how the garrison of the city of Akka decided to surrender the city to the Franks. And we saw how they betrayed their promise and they killed everyone in the city of Akka. And we saw how Salahuddin was furious with this. And then the last thing we discussed last time was after the city of Akka, the point of focus of the Franks was to take the city of Jerusalem. But before taking Jerusalem, they had to go all the way, take the city of Jaffa first, then attack the city of Jerusalem. And we said on the way, a battle happened at Arsuf, and we saw that this was a setback for Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. That the Muslims suffered a loss of 10,000 people in that battle. Nevertheless, Salahuddin was not broken. Salahuddin was as persistent as ever. And next day he came forward and asked for another round, but Richard decided to continue the path to the city of Jaffa. And we said the strategy shifted. Right? That at this point, Salahuddin and all his strategists, they decided that the battle is about Jerusalem. And then all those coastal cities, if they start defending them, what will happen is the same thing that happened in Akka. So they decided to do something a little bit of hard but necessary. They decided to destroy all the coastal cities, raze it to the ground. So Richard would not have any portal cities left, there's no base, and now that he's forced to go inside to the city of Jerusalem, that's inland, they can cut the supply line, they can surround, they can attack, basically similar method to the Battle of Hattin. And that was the strategy of Salahuddin. And we saw how Salahuddin indeed destroyed the city of Jaffa, and indeed destroyed the city of Asqalon. There were some negotiations, if you remember, between Salahuddin and Richard. And remember one suggestion, if you guys remember, was a wedding proposal between Richard's sister and Salahuddin's brother. We discussed that last time, how that was a maneuver. And Salahuddin, of course, gave Richard what he did not expect by agreeing. Right? Now the other thing is, at that point, the Franks, the army of the Franks were not homogeneous. Meaning what? Some of them got tired. It has been almost now 3 years. They did not achieve much. It's only Akka and Jaffa. So the king of France started to get tired. Richard wants to go back home. And Conrad, this knight that made Sur stand fast against Salahuddin, he started to negotiate with Salahuddin. And he started saying, okay, you know what, I take my troops, we return back onto the city of Sur, one condition. We have a truce. You don't attack me after that. If I was not to attack you anymore, and I was to go back to the city of Sur, promise me that for the next 10 years you leave me alone. And Salahuddin agreed. Because this is a good thing. He braved the unity of the army of the Franks. And as they're negotiating, something happened, which is what? As you can guess, right? One Sunday morning, right? Conrad goes, for the church service. After the church service, he goes with some of, the religious people there to have lunch or something. And on the way, those very religious people, Christians, they take out poisonous daggers and they stab Conrad in front of everybody. And it turns out that those were actually assassins. Assassins pretending to be Christians. For years they worshipped and pretended to be Christians for years. People trusted them, but they're not. This was the method of the assassins, right? They intermingle, they convince you that they're one of you, and at the right moment you find that that person that you know for 10 years is actually one of the assassins, right? So Conrad was dead. Now the question came, who killed him? Who do you think did this? Now, what do you think the Franks thought? Exactly. Richard blamed that on who? Salahuddin. See Salahuddin, they killed Conrad, right? We have to do something. So like the jealousy started, again rising. We have to vengeance and what have you. In reality, who was it that killed Conrad? Who was it that went to the assassin and actually did this? It was Richard himself. And we know that because later he stood trial for this act. It was Richard who saw that, Conrad is going to take some of his troops and go away. I need those troops, and it will be a good move. I talk to the assassins, they kill him, we blame it on Salahuddin, I lead the troops, good move. So it was actually Richard that did this maneuver. The assassin could be paid. It is said that when the Franks went to the assassins, this is a story actually, to get their service, to hire them, they wanted to demonstrate their power. So the leader, the Sheikh al-Jabal, as they call him, right, the leader, met with the ambassadors of the Crusaders. And he started saying, okay, how many troops do you have? Are you sure they obey you? Are you sure they follow you? Are they loyal to you? And they said, yes. He said, no, you don't know what that means. He said, let me show you. And then he looked to some of his people, some of his followers, and told some of them, go up that mountain over there. And of course, on the double, they went up. And then he said, look at true obedience. And he looked to one of them and said, jump. And the person jumped. And he fell and he died. And then he said, look at obedience. And then he looked at the second one, jump. And he jumps, and he falls and he dies. And he said, you want to see more obedience? And the guy said, no, enough. We see what do you think is going on here? What are the assassins doing? Yeah, it's like this. They're showing people that we basically we're no joke. That when I tell them to do anything, they do it for me. So be very careful with us, because my followers they don't fear death. They believe in me so much that if I tell them to go kill you and they will not hesitate for a second. This is the type of followers I have. Right. So again, remember the publicity and the psychological warfare. The assassins depended on this. So of course, this type of story and this type of world went across the Christian world, across the Franks. Be careful from the assassins; they mean business, kind of, right? Nevertheless, Conrad was dead, and we know that Salahuddin, as Ibn Shaddad writes, they were very sad because they wanted him to live because that would break the Franks' army. Nevertheless, now Richard is in control, and the time came when he had to make a decision. Now that Salahuddin destroyed the city of Asqalan, Richard decides it's time to take Jerusalem. And he takes the army, and now they start going inland. Once that happened, the plan of Salahuddin started mobilizing. He destroyed all the wells in the region. He poisoned all the wells. Left nothing, right? And once the army of Richard started going inland, the army of Salahuddin started the same maneuver, surrounding from all sides and harassing day and night. Attacks day and night, day and night, day and night. Numerous battles, small battles happened on the way. Salahuddin won almost all of them. Lots of ambushes. People started, dying left and right. The supply lines were always attacked. So Richard was in a very difficult situation. This march is taking weeks, if not months, to go to Jerusalem. And the more he goes inland, the supply line extends, Salahuddin is attacking more, and he realizes this is not good, I'm going to be surrounded. And then a debate started happening. Should we go for Jerusalem or not? Right? So, and that debate started happening in the Franks, right? Salahuddin insisted that he will defend Jerusalem himself. And he gave a speech to his soldiers and his commanders. And he said the following: know that today you are the army of Islam and the ones defending it. As you are aware, the blood of the Muslims, their property, and their offsprings depend on you and your protection. There are no other Muslims that can face this enemy but you. If you turn away, God forbid, the Franks will roll up these lands as they roll up a scroll. This is your responsibility, as you are the ones whom Allah placed this responsibility on. You have been supported by the wealth of the people whom you are supposed to protect. The Muslims in all lands depend on you. So Salahuddin was giving a speech that this is a duty. We are the people, like those people, people pay zakat, people pay charity, and we're the soldiers. We're the ones that Allah entrusted us. We're the ones that know how to fight. If we do not fight, who will? Who will defend those people? Who will defend the lands of Islam? This responsibility, it's Allah that put it on us. And therefore it's our responsibility never to give up. And he announces that he is going to defend the city of Jerusalem himself. And as I said, on the way, Richard was facing numerous attacks by Salahuddin. And the casualties are mounting. Now, Salahuddin was described by Ibn Qudama like, Ibn Qudama is a great scholar that lived at the time of Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. He wrote a book, Minhaj al-Qasidin, which is an abbreviation of Ihya Ulum-ud-Din of Imam al-Ghazali. If you want a book that to describe what kind of scholarship and what kind of teachings they teach at that point of view, I would recommend this book. And as I said, Sheikh Omar Suleiman has a series with the Maghreb Institute where he explains this book in details. It's a book of Tasqih. It's a very beautiful book. Anyway, Ibn Qudama goes to Jerusalem at this point. And he says, I saw Salahuddin. And he gave a very beautiful description. He says, I saw Malikan, Muhaban, Aziman, Muhabbaban. He said, I saw a king, a lord, a ruler that is beloved to his people. Very well respected, very well revered, very well, very serious, yet very approachable. And he said, I saw him and how serious he was. And he never spoke anything but wisdom. All the people around him are men of knowledge. And even the soldiers around him, they speak with hadith, they speak with wisdom. And he said, I saw him, how dedicated he was. Obsessed with Jerusalem and the building of the walls of Jerusalem. And he would go from the beginning of the day and start carrying stones on his own shoulder to build the walls. And then he said, I saw all the men around him, including the Qadi, the father of Egypt, everyone was taking him as a role model. They would do the same thing. Then he would come. And then it was like food, time for food. And he said he would extend the tables everywhere and invite everybody to sit and eat, everybody around him. Free food, basically, right? And he said he would sit with his people. And his face is shiny, smiley, very lenient to them, very comfortable. And he describes, and the amazing thing he says, and the people around him are all of the same caliber. That's how this is a scholar describing Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. How impressed he was with the description of Salahuddin at that point. Now, at that point, Salahuddin was really worried. Now the news are coming, Richard is coming, and he decides, he gives the announcement, I am defending Jerusalem myself. I'm going to stay inside the city and defend it. I don't want anybody to deliver. The Akka is not going to happen again. And people told him that's too dangerous. If you defend Jerusalem and the city falls, you will fall. And he said, I am defending it and my kids with me inside. And I will divide the army into two. Half the army with me inside, half the army outside. And if Richard starts to attack, we will defend the city and the other half will attack him from outside. And he was so persistent in his plan. Now, what happened is he was really worried. He would stand and the army is approaching and they started to hear the news. It's few days apart. In a few days the Franks, the French and the English and everybody is going to be around Jerusalem. And Salahuddin is determined. And one night Ibn Shaddad mentions a very interesting story. He says the following. He says, I went to Salahuddin nighttime. For what? It's time for him to study Sahih al-Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. He's studying hadith with a hadith scholar. And it's the time for the session. Morning he's fighting and working. Nighttime he's not sleeping. He rarely sleeps, he studies. Right? So I went for him and I saw he's so distressed. I can see it, that he's so burdened by the battles that are coming ahead. And he said, Sayyidi, I see that you're so stressed, and I see that you didn't even sleep at all. And he told him, yes, I haven't slept for a long time. So Mishaddad said, tonight, please take some rest. I want you to sleep. It's okay. There's a few hours left. It's going to be Fajr time. Another day. You look tired. Go ahead and sleep. And Ibn Shaddad says, I decided to leave, and I left him to sleep. I went to my own tent. And Ibn Shaddad said, I myself was distressed. I was so concerned for him. He doesn't look good. His health is deteriorating. The man is going to kill himself over Jerusalem. Right? So he said, I couldn't sleep. I kept up, praying and making some dua and thinking and, worried. So it's almost time for Fajr. So I went back to Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, his tent, and he says, I saw that the Sultan, it was very clear, he didn't sleep as well. So I told him, yes, Sayyidi, it looks, you didn't even sleep. He said, no, I couldn't. I could not sleep at all. And then at that point, Ibn Shaddad got an idea. And he said, I told Salahuddin, I have an idea. Do as I say. Today is Friday. It's the Fajr of Friday. And he said, you're in Jerusalem. I want you to do the following. I want you to go make wudu. And then we go before Fajr, right, to the Aqsa Mosque. Between the adhan of Fajr and Iqamah, I want you to pray 2 rak'ahs. And in those 2 rak'ahs, while you're in the position of sujood, and first give charity. Give charity, and then pray 2 rak'ahs between adhan and Iqamah. And then when you are in the sujood position, make sincere dua to Allah and tell Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you have exhausted all your needs, that you have spent everything you can, and that you need His help, and that you rely on Him. For surely Allah will not let down someone like you. And he said, I watched Salahuddin going making wudu, going and spending some charity. And as he said, I watched him in the Aqsa Mosque, the adhan, people call the adhan. And between adhan and iqamah, I watched him pray 2 rak'ahs. And I watched him in his sujood with tears in his eyes, crying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? And he knows he's pleading Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with this poverty and need, right? Asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help. And then it was time for Fajr Salah. And he said, immediately after Fajr Salah, we received, if you will, one of the, what do you call them, scouts of the Muslims. And came back. And he said, I have news from the camps, the Franks camp. What happened? He said, the news is the following. Yesterday and today's morning, they started to quarrel. And they started to quarrel about whether they should continue or return back. And Richard said, okay, describe the situation for me. And then they came and they met together with the Templars and the Hospitallers and the kings, and they put the map in front of them, and the city of Jerusalem, and they described the situation. And once they described how the city is fortified and its position and how Salahuddin is planning, Richard said the following. Richard said, his statement was, this is a city that is impossible to take. And I want you to notice, as long as Salahuddin is alive, and what else? And the Muslims are united around him. This is impossible. And he said, if we try to attack the city, Salahuddin will be defending, and then they will attack us from outside. If we switch our troops to attack the army from outside, the army inside the city will come and attack us from the back, and our supply line is cut. And Akka took us, 2 years? And this is Jerusalem itself. With Salahuddin himself in it, I know the man. He is not giving up the city. So Richard, the Templars, the Hospitallers, everyone agreed. It's an impossible city to take. And they decided at this point to do what? Pull back. And the attack, finally, the Franks, they saw that they cannot take the city of Jerusalem. And at this point, Richard orders his troops, pull back. And at that point, now, if I was to ask you, why did this happen? Many people will say because of what Salahuddin did, and his numerous attacks, and the battles, and the strategy. Can it also be his dua? Because that's what Ibn Shaddad tells us. This is exactly what happened. He made this dua this way. Both are important. And notice when Salahuddin is making dua, he's not sitting home comfortably in Cairo or Damascus and making dua and nothing. He's making dua in the battlefield. He's both together. And this is something we miss. It's not, let's stay home and make dua, or let's go and do something smooth. The best dua you can make is the dua in the demonstration, in the battlefield, in the line of fire. That's the best dua. The worst thing that we can do is we do nothing. Neither dua nor activism. This is the one thing that we cannot tolerate. Right? It's okay if you're not good in activism and speaking out, and do something. Volunteer. By the way, all those campaigns, who's supplying them? All those soldiers, where is the food coming from? Don't you think that we need people to do that? Without people cultivating the land, providing food, managing the Fadil and all the women and the hospitals, and this will not happen. We need to contribute. It doesn't have to be in the front line. But not contributing at all and sitting home and watching the news, this is not an option. Right? So this is a very important message here. Now what happened when Richard decided to break the attack of Jerusalem? He decided, okay, let's go north. Let's start attacking Sidon and Beirut. Let's basically expand north. And he went on ship and took the ships and started sailing all the way to attack other cities. Salahuddin did a very interesting strategy move. He ordered the army out of Jerusalem and he decided to go and attack the city of Jaffa. Remember, he destroyed the city and Richard was starting to rebuild the walls. And Salahuddin, a surprise attack happens. And Salahuddin attacks the city of Jaffa. And in a few days, the army of Salahuddin surrounds Jaffa. They build their trebuchets and catapults. They start bombarding the walls, and the walls start to break. And they start telling the people inside, negotiate a surrender. And they say, no, Richard is going to come save us. So Salahuddin orders his troops press forward, and they break the walls, and they go in to find that they build another wall inside out of wood. And he orders the trebuchets to fire, and they break the second wall, right? And now he sends for them, and they said, okay, we can negotiate a surrender of the city, right? And now Salahuddin's troops are going to enter the city of Jaffa, and all of a sudden they hear that Richard is coming back. And his ships came back all the way to the port of the city of Jaffa. And at that point, the city was about to fall to Salahuddin, and they're negotiating a surrender. But the citadel inside the city and the troops did not surrender yet. And they kind of went back on their promise to Salahuddin to surrender the city. And Richard hears the news, and he orders immediately his troops to land on the beach. And he lands himself and starts fighting the Muslims at the beach. And Salahuddin is about to take the city of Jaffa, right? And a battle is going to happen. Salahuddin takes the city of Jaffa, now Richard is here. But Salahuddin did something really interesting. What do you think he did? Any guess? Take the city, fight Richard, do both. Do both. He ordered all his troops to pull back and leave the city of Jaffa and retreat. What? Why?
Because there's a chance that they can all after defending Jaffa, they can bring another army to attack Jerusalem.
Strategy. What's the strategy? The strategy is gather all the troops to defend Jerusalem. But if he stays inside of Jaffa, and now Richard surrounds the city, it's going to be Akka again. And now the troops are what? Partitioned again. The strategy, remember his strategy was what? Why did he do this attack? What was the purpose of this attack? You will not be able to move, I will not let you rest. And the moment you leave, we'll go to attack city. And you come back, we'll leave it for you. You leave, we attack again. We're not getting time. You are. Right? But the point is, we will not let you take Jerusalem, and we will not let you take another city. We will consistently fight you. And we're wise. We're not going to get attacked again. You try to surround us, we retreat. You leave, we attack. You try to surround us, we retreat. You see the game, right? So Richard became very frustrated with this. And he sent this letter to Salahuddin with some of his men. And he says the following. This Sultan, he said, this is a message that he sent to Salahuddin. And he told the people, the knights of Salahuddin, this Sultan of yours is a great man. Islam has no greater king. There is no greater king on earth mightier than him. By God, he is great. By God, he is great. Your Sultan is the greatest Sultan that Islam has. I could not have imagined that he would take Jaffa in 3 months. How could he take it in 3 days? And then he says, greet the Sultan for me and say, for God's sake, give me what I asked for to make peace. This is a matter that must have an end. My lands over the sea have been ruined. For this to go on is no good for us, nor for you. Now Salahuddin detects that Richard wants to do what? Negotiate. But now the negotiation is no longer about Jerusalem. He gave up. The negotiation is about what? Khalas, you keep Jerusalem, let's have peace. We have the lands that we took. Jaffa and Asqalan, and you have the rest and I leave. What's the response of Salahuddin? What do you guess? No negotiation. All the land is ours, nothing is yours, we fight. But what do you think the commanders around Salahuddin and the scholars around him told him?
To agree with the treaty, because they've been fighting for a long time. They've been getting tired. They don't wanna fight this war because they already have Jerusalem. They're happy.
Yeah. So they told him the following. They said, we are exhausted. They're exhausted, we're exhausted. You've been fighting for years. The army has been fighting for years. The crops, the amount of money that you're spending is, and the cities, Jaffa and Asqalan, all those cities are destroyed. The land is in ruins, right? And it's taking a big toll. And he said, if you do not fight, if you do not give, they will stay. And winter will come and they won't have, and they will stay. And it will keep going on and on and on. On the other hand, if you agree, what does it mean? We broke the Third Crusade. The entire Third Crusade failed. All what they took is Akka and Jaffa and some small cities here and there. That's nothing. Once they leave, and the truce is over, we can always attack and take it. The initiative will be ours. But for them, the Third Crusade completely broke. They go back to their country saying what? We could not take Jerusalem. For 3 years we fought Salahuddin. The whole Europe fought Salahuddin. And we could not break him. That will really, and they paid, you know how much money those people paid? You know what casualties they have? Hundreds of thousands. They will think twice before doing this again. So agree with them. And Salahuddin reluctantly starts the negotiation by saying, okay, what cities you want to keep? And they said Jaffa, Asqalan, and Salahuddin insists, no, the city of Asqalan is ours. He starts even negotiating, and they agreed at the end that the city of Asqalan returns to Salahuddin but with no walls to defend it. And they keep Jaffa and the rest of the cities that Jaffa and Akka is. Right? And that's it, that's all what they keep. Now at this point, Salahuddin tells Ibn Shaddad a very personal message that was so profound when we read. He told Ibn Shaddad the following. This is his teacher, his mentor. He said, yes. I am afraid, I have fear to make peace. I don't want to make peace. I don't want this truce. I don't know what will happen to me. Salahuddin is getting older, his health is deteriorating. He said, I'm afraid to make this truce with them for like whatever, 5 years or 3 years. What happens if I die? Right? The enemy will grow strong. Now that they have the coastal lands, they still have Jaffa and Akka, they have their beachheads. They can land anytime. They will come forth to recover the rest of the lands. And you will see all of them pointing to his own children and followers. I am afraid that all of them, once we do peace, what happens? Everybody will be, khalas, it's time for peace. Let me sit on my chair. They will divide. Each one of them will take a city, each one of them will take a fort, and they will sleep, will be comfortable. The enemy is not. And then the enemy will return back. And those kids of mine will not stand together. Each one will mind his own business. I have Damascus, I have Egypt, and they will not fight the Franks. And the Franks will come back and attack, and they will retake Jerusalem. And he said, if you live long enough, you will see what I'm speaking about. What do you guys think of the fears of Salahuddin? Can we have somebody else? He's answering all the questions. Any comments on this? You see why he was saying no. What was he afraid of? Peace is good, truce is good. But when we have a truce is about what? A truce is different. By the way, there is a difference between a peace treaty and truce. A peace treaty is what? That I accept you and you accept me. That I sign that خلاص I agree that Yafa is yours and Akka is yours and you agree and we have permanent peace and I acknowledged your authority over the land. This is not what Salahuddin did. This is impermissible, by the way. Truce is about what? Truce is, I never acknowledge your existence. Truce is about what? It's not good for both of us to fight, so let's have a ceasefire. And a ceasefire with a period. And after that, I never acknowledge you, you never acknowledge me. That's permissible in Islam. You can have a truce like that. And that's what Salahuddin did. He never agreed or signed that, okay, this is your land and I accept you. Not never. But we have a truce. He's afraid of what? What will happen in the truce? If I sign a truce for 3 years, 5 years, are we going to go back and rest and eat and drink or are we going to prepare the army for the next battle? He's saying, I know them. They're not going to give up. They're going to go back to Europe and they're going to prepare, and after the truce, they're going to be back. On the other hand, it's us. My children, when they taste peace and quiet and everybody's going to be by himself, they will not do the same. That was his fear. And he tells Ibn Shaddad, if you live long enough, you will see what I say. Now, they ended up signing a truce, and the truce is for 3 years and 3 months. And that was the end of the Third Crusade. Now, Richard, before leaving, he sent a letter to Salahuddin telling him, after 3 years, I'm going to be back. I'm going to take Jerusalem. And Salahuddin says, and I'll be waiting, and I'd rather fight you rather than fight anybody else. Right? And you can see the spirit. Right? It's very clear this is not over. Right? I will be back, and Salahuddin said, I'll be ready for you. Right? At this point, now that there is a truce, Balian meets with Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. Right? And at that point, they started asking Balian, and Ibn Shaddad said this, I asked him how many troops came and how many died. He says over the years, and again the number is, he says over the years more than 500,000 came. And he said more than 200,000 died on your hands. And more maybe died because of what? Other reasons, like what disease and he said most of those people died. So we're speaking hundreds of thousands of casualties in the other camp. Right? So those were very brutal battles. The Third Crusade was really very brutal, and the toll on Europe was big. So the psychology of it, that you sent all those hundreds of thousands and you see them coming back when they could not take Jerusalem. Right? This is how serious the battles were, what Salahuddin had to face. Now Salahuddin, what is next? So he goes back to take care of the cities. He goes to visit the city of Damascus. He hasn't been in Damascus now for years. And the city is so happy, Salahuddin is back finally, and everybody's out to meet Salahuddin. The governor of Damascus came to meet Salahuddin in person, and he takes him inside the city and tells him, Salahuddin, I have prepared something for you. And he shows him a big palace, a mansion. And he said, I have prepared this for you, so now you can retire in peace. You see, here is a big palace for you. Now that you've done what you've done, what do you think Salahuddin said? Salahuddin's thing is like, this is a place built for someone that thinks he's never going to die. We were not created for this. We were created to worship Allah. And then he looked to the man and said, and where did you get the money to build this from? What money was used? The money of who? The Muslims? And you think you did something good? You think what he did to that man? He relieved him from his position. You're fired. That's who Salahuddin is. This is not what he wanted. This is the money of the Muslims. What palace? What are you building? What are you doing? We were not created, life is not about enjoyment and palaces and this is a sultan. And we're not created for this. I'm not impressed by this. And then he gathers everybody else and he says, now what is next? What does he mean? Is his next rest? He says, no. What's next? Are we going to sit doing nothing? We're not going to sit doing nothing. They're going to come back. So what's our next move? Where are we going to go? And they now sit, and the strategy was, well, there's two locations. Asia Minor, the Seljuks, are very weak and they can't fight. we need to go and take this land and unify more Muslims. That's the next step. Take Asia Minor, because they always land there. Right? Turkey, modern day Turkey. So focus in that direction. Another was, no, go to the eastern direction. Past Baghdad, the Bukhara and Samarkand and Central Asia. Because the remnants now, there's a fight over there between the Al-Khwarizmiyin and the Seljuks, and that land is the other front for the Muslims. The front that is facing China. The front that is facing Mongolia, if you will. And that is not as, we need to go take, so which one should we do? People said Turkey, Asia Minor, and Salahuddin said, you have weak resolve. We are going to do both together. One will go here, one will go there. Next spring, we gather the armies and we start. We need to unify the Muslims. Right? That was his thing, in preparation for the other attack. Right? And Salahuddin now, they tell him that the cities, go take care of the cities. The Muslims, and Salahuddin starts visiting different cities, right? And then he wished for one thing. It was the season for Hajj. And Salahuddin said, I have one request. He never asked for anything for himself. Now he wants to ask for himself. I want to go for Hajj. That's all what I want. All those holy places that I defended, Mecca and Medina, he sends millions of dirhams and dinars and he supported them. I want to see the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I want to go see that. I never saw the Kaaba. I want to do Hajj and Umrah. And the request was denied. The scholars around him told him it is haram for you to do Hajj. Why? Hajj is a pillar of Islam. Because of the situation we're in. Richard didn't leave yet. And the Franks are there. If they know that you left your position and you go for Hajj for 2 months, those people are known to betray their promises. They will probably betray and they will get their army and they will try to attack Jerusalem. So your duty is that you have to stay in front of them. You are not permitted to leave your post. Even when other Muslims are, you are not. It's your duty. And the only wish of Salahuddin was denied. And it is said he was almost very heartbroken, right, to see that. But he went around and he started visiting all the cities and started rebuilding and started spending on people. And then he started saying, if I cannot go for Hajj, let me at least pave the roads for the people going for Hajj. And he went personally to supervise that. The paths, Muslims going for Hajj. Salahuddin built hotels, by the way, free hotels. If you're going for Hajj all the way, and they call them Dar al-Diyaf, hospitality, being hospitable, right? It's a house of being hospitable, right? You can come any Hajj. If you're going Hajj along the way, you go to those houses, free accommodation, free food, free everything, right? So he built all those along the way, and he's checking, making sure that Hujjaj have what they need, and it is said something that happened. Oh, by the way, before I do that, again I'm emphasizing this. I need to say this again. The role of Egypt. Salahuddin visits Egypt. Why? Egypt was the land that supplied the Crusades. And remember what we said? Remember the letter of William of Tyre, where he described how what led to this disaster of losing Jerusalem? Egypt and Shem united together. And this letter is so profound because up till today, this strategy in the modern situation, they know that very well. That Shem and Egypt must be divided. Shem itself must be divided. Cannot even allow Syria to be by itself. You have to divide. We cannot let the Muslims unite. This is what the problem was, right? This is an important thing to remember, right? This book, right? Right. Now, as I said, Salahuddin goes, and I'm just going to skip this character bit, right? So, one other thing, when he was doing this and fixing the roads for the pilgrims, something that made Salahuddin's smile happen. It's a very small situation, but it tells us a lot. One of the leaders of Salahuddin in the city of Akka, one of his men, Bahauddin Karakosh, right, who led the resistance against the Franks in the Battle of Akka. When the city of Akka fell, Salahuddin thought they killed him. But he sees Baha'u'ddin walking in. And he was so happy, and he asked him what happened. He said, no, they didn't kill me, they spared me. Because they knew that I'm the leader, I have money. Now that the truce was signed, they told me we can release you if you pay 80,000 dinars. And Baha'u'ddin agreed. And he said, now that I'm free, I came to see you, Salahuddin, I have to go and start collecting the money so I can give it back to them. Why is that situation so unique? Why is that situation so relevant? What do you see here? If you are Baha'u'ddin, would you give them the money? How many times have they betrayed? How many times they promise something and then they don't fulfill it? If I was Baha'u'ddin, I would say, hey, they betrayed me so many times. Like, let me go. You want 100,000? Okay, fine. Once I go, what will I do? Go. But Baha'u'ddin, nobody is telling him to do anything. But I said I'm going to give them 80,000 dinars. Therefore, I must fulfill my promise. That character, you see the character trait of the Muslims of the time, the people around Salahuddin. I know they don't do the same thing, but they're not my teachers. I'm not them, I'm a Muslim. And when a Muslim says something, this is who we are. So he's going to go collect the money and give it back to them. Right? Nevertheless, Salahuddin insists on going and seeing the Hujjaj, the pilgrims, on the way back from Hajj. And it is said it was winter time and he did not cover himself properly and he started catching a cold. And indeed, he started getting a fever. And his health was really deteriorating. And people said all those battles, he wasn't 60 yet, he was 50 something, I think, right at this time. But they said if you see him, you think this man is 70 years old. It says the toll of those days and the battles, 17 years of fighting, and the assassins and the traitors and the Muslims and everybody goes home except him, and winter, summer, and the sickness. And he said you can see he is effective. His body, it had its toll on him. He's not as strong, the immune system, if you will. So he got sick, and people got worried. And he started to have a fever. And indeed, they take him to Damascus, and they send for the doctors, and the doctor comes, and he has intense fever, and it's getting worse. And Salahuddin, they know this man loved Salah and Quran. So they said a person, his Quran reciter, stay with him, recite Quran for him. And he says, I started to see that the Sultan is losing consciousness. And Salahuddin starts to fall into a coma, if you will. And he said, now the Sultan, everybody is one. All the scholars around him, all his men, Damascus, the Muslims, and the dua of Salahuddin in Mecca and Medina, and all, people loved him. Right? Very beloved to people. And people were really worried about Salahuddin. And they say his reciter would sit by him and recite Quran. And he says, whenever I would recite, and I would reach any area that has to do with the names of Allah, Wallahu Ghafurur Rahim, Allah, he says, Salahuddin, unconsciously says, Sahih, true. That's the only word he said. And said the situation was serious. And then indeed, it was getting worse. And he said, I was reciting till I reached the verse, هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. It is Allah, the one that there is no deity worthy of worship except Him. On Him do I rely. And He's the Lord of the great throne. He said, I saw Salahuddin. A big smile on his face. His face lit up, and that was his last breath. The great Sultan passed away. Yeah. And that was a very, very sad point of history. Like they describe it a day like no other. This is a description by many people around him. They say this was a day such as had not befallen Islam since the loss of the rightly guided Khalifas. That's Ibn Shaddad. Ibn Shaddad says it was a dark day. Grief engulfed the whole city. People were about to die from sadness. Islam never saw a day like this since the time of the rightly guided Khalifas. And this is Abdullah ibn Al-Bayt. Men grieved him as they grieved the four prophets. For he was so beloved by good and bad, Muslims and unbelievers alike. Christians were crying, Jews were crying, Muslims were crying. It is said that, and among the things that is said, Ibn Shaddad said, I used to hear people say, I will give my soul for you. And I didn't believe it till that day. I myself, if I know that giving my life will save him, I know I will, and I know everybody else will. Christians were crying, Jews were crying, the Franks were crying. Because Salahuddin was not just a ruler, was just not a warrior. Someone that touched the hearts of people. Now, one of the scholars came, and this is al-Asfahani, and this poem is, I cannot even translate it. Right? He started saying a beautiful poem about Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. And some of the things he says, Man al-Aramil, for the orphans, who's going to take care of them? For the widows, who's going to take care of them? For Islam, you're the lion that defended Islam, and the poem is so beautiful, right? And the loss of Salahuddin, he says, it's like a mountain crumbling. And he says, don't think it's just one man. This is something that affects all the Muslims. He's so beloved to everybody. And his poem is long, but it's so beautiful. Right? But Salahuddin, before dying, did something really interesting. He left a letter to all Muslims. Before he dies, he asks the one, his flag bearer, he asks him to come. And he says, you're the one that carried my flag, the flag of Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. You carried with me in all the battles, all those 17 years. When I die, I want you to take that flag. And I want you to take the flag and go in every Muslim city and gather people around you and tell them the following. And tell them, this is the flag of the great Sultan, the one who commanded men and ruled vast lands, Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. The great Sultan is now dead. And all what he took from the life of this world was a hole in the earth and a piece of cloth that wrapped his body like the piece of cloth that represents this flag. The message of Salahuddin. This is what he wanted all Muslims to remember. What is the message about? What are we fighting over? What is life really about? At the end of the day, great Sultan or the poorest of persons. Where are we going? All what you're really going to take from this is this piece of a hole and a wrap that you're going to wrap your body with. Whatever we did good will benefit us. Whatever we did bad, we regret it. Why do we envy each other? Why do we fight each other? Why we get so distracted? Wake up. Attachment to worldly things. Don't get too attached. That's what this is the message of Salahuddin. Another beautiful message he gave to his own son. Before he dies, Salahuddin's will. He asks his children to come. Right? And this is his words to his son, and it's so effective. He said, I advise you, by the way, I thought he's going to say, I advise you to protect Jerusalem. Right? No. I advise you to have taqwa of Allah, as is the source of all good. I command you, I thought it's to defend Jerusalem with what Allah commanded you. For it's the way to your salvation. I warn you. I warn you from bloodshed. This is the one that hundreds of thousands dies on his hand. He says, no. Bloodshed. Do not shed blood unless. Be careful with that. You're the Sultan. It doesn't mean that killing is not an easy thing. Be careful from shedding blood unnecessarily. Blood never rests and never sleeps. I ask you to protect the hearts of people. This is such a profound message. If he didn't say, I ask you to protect Jerusalem, do you see Jerusalem here? Salahuddin fought for Jerusalem. You saw what he did. Where is Jerusalem? I ask you to protect the heart of people, the hearts of the leaders and the nobles. Do not envy anyone, for death leaves no one. Be mindful of what is between you and people, for it will not be forgiven except if they forgive. As for what is between you and Allah, Allah is all forgiving and all merciful. Where is the advice about Jerusalem? What do you see about Salahuddin here? Something that this is very profound. Jerusalem is not the goal, it's the means. What is our goal as Muslims? Isn't it to please Allah? Freeing Jerusalem is not the goal, it is a means to that goal. Sometimes we do good things. We build a masjid. But the masjid I'm building is not the goal. It's means to please Allah. Sometimes I focus on ilm and learning and memorizing the Quran. That's all good, but that's not the goal. The goal is not to learn more. The goal is what? To worship more. Sometimes the means end up as a goal. Salahuddin, the one that defended Jerusalem, the one that fought all those years, it was very clear for him. It's about Allah. It's about Allah. It's about Allah, Allah. So his advice to his son was what? That's what matters. The most important thing, more important than the land, more important than the masjids, more important is the hearts of people. It's the most prized thing in this life. It's the hearts of the human beings. This is the Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He's the Sultan of the hearts. He came for that. He came for tazkiyah. He came for akhlaq. Watch the hearts of your emirs. Have you ever seen a president in his campaign says this, when I come to power, I promise you I'll take care of your heart? No, I'll take care of your wealth, no more taxes, maybe. But Salahuddin, no. Your heart is the most important thing. That is who Salahuddin al-Ayyubi is. That's what he cared about. Right? Now, Al-Fadl, the judge, one of the teachers of Salahuddin, the one that kept the campaign together, the one that was managing the whole state. This is the manager, the internal minister, if you will, that's managing the mind behind everything. He gave this, he went to the children of Salahuddin after he died, and he says the following. He says, I am so grieved to even speak. As for my advice, I am so grieved to offer any. As for the consultation, you don't need anything. And he said, however, it is clear for me that if we were to agree and remain united, the loss of your father will be the greatest loss we have. On the other hand, if you differ, if you disunite, if you start fighting each other, the least of our losses will be the loss of Salahuddin, compared to what is going to happen if you disunite. You see what he's saying? Unity, you stay united, we're in pain, the loss of Salahuddin will be the biggest thing. If you disunite, the loss of Salahuddin will be insignificant compared to what will happen to the Muslims. The Franks are going to be back. You guys disunite, we are going to have misery again. Right? And those were the days, this is how Shaddad finishes, those were the days of the Sultan Salahuddin al-Ayyubi and the men around him. Those days passed, their long years now feel like moments, and their long struggles now feel like a dream that passed in a glimpse of the eye. That's how Ibn Shaddad finishes the book of the biography of Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. Now quickly, what did the future bring? The fears of Salahuddin al-Ayyubi. What do you think happened? Exactly what he predicted. The children of Salahuddin al-Ayyubi started fighting, and the children of Salahuddin al-Ayyubi started dividing his empire. And again, Egypt alone, Sham divided, same story. And then what happened? The Franks came back. And when the Franks came back, what happens? They this time attacked Egypt. Right? They did not attack Jerusalem. They attacked Egypt because they know. And they threatened Cairo. And when they did so, what do you think happened?
They killed everyone.
No. They were offered, take Jerusalem and Egypt. They were given this offer. And they were so arrogant, this is the 5th Crusade. They were so arrogant, they said, no, we'll take Egypt and Jerusalem. What saved the Muslims at this time was an intervention by Allah. The Franks made a mistake. They started going inland to attack Cairo. They did not realize that the Nile River, swells. Swells meaning what? It floods. And they weren't aware of the land. And that's what the Muslims did. They just let the river swell, and they broke the dams, and they flooded the land with the water of the Nile River. And the Franks, their knights with the heavy armor, found themselves in what? Mud and water. Can you fight in mud and water? And it was a complete disaster. And that's the only thing that saved Egypt at the time. Nevertheless, they went back, and the German emperor sent to Egypt, saying, if you do not give me Jerusalem as you promised, I'm going to come back with a new crusade. The 6th Crusade. Guess what happened? No, you can take Jerusalem. And he signs an agreement. And Frederick Barbarossa, with 300 knights, they come and they take the city of Jerusalem from the Muslims again. And they leave Egypt and take Jerusalem. Give me Sinai and you can stay in Israel. Same deal. Nothing different. Egypt is my land. This is Palestine, it's not mine. I mind my own business. This is what happened. Right? So Salahuddin's fears were true. What about the assassins? Who got rid of the assassins? It wasn't Salahuddin. The Mongols. Holak. A worse tyrant. Those people that did what they did, their end came on the hands of the Mongols. And yes, indeed, there was another episode that the Muslims faced. Worse days came. The Muslims were between two attacks. Crusades and the Mongols came. And the Muslims had to face the wrath of the Mongols. In a time that was so bad, the Khilafah itself will fall. And there will be nothing left except the infrastructure that Salahuddin and Nuruddin built in Egypt. Those schools, those Mamluks, those warriors that were sent to they're the ones that are going to rise up and they're going to stand against them, the Mongols, the Mongol invasion. And this, inshallah, is our next session, inshallah. I'll leave you here, inshallah. Subhanak Allahumma wa bihamdik, la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Jazakumullah.
Jazakallah, Sheikh Hassan Elwan. May Allah bless you and reward you for all your effort. You came long ways to teach all the youth and the adults here. The Mongol series most likely will start after the holidays. January 11th is the first Sunday, so put that on your calendar, inshallah. And then, what else?
If you have any questions or anything you want to...
Yeah, if you want to have Q&A, short Q&A, or
anything you want.
let me ask one. Why is history important? You touched upon it a bit, yeah.
I'll ask you one question. If there is one thing you learn or one thing you take from this, what would it be? From the whole story. What's one thing? Just one thing. Unity. Right? Please, unity. Why is it so easy for us to disunite? Please, for God's sake. Somebody celebrates the Mawlid, somebody doesn't. That's not a reason for us to not talk to each other and not visit each other and call ourselves muqtadi'as. And if small things like that are going to divide the Muslims, we make it so easy for our enemy to do whatever they want. Nationality, ethnicity, all those minor issues. Come, we are one nation. That was the message of Salahuddin, unity. Right? What else?
Surround yourself with people, like good people.
You saw that Nuruddin Zengi and Salahuddin, one of their strengths was what? The people around them. You notice that? Who's around me? Scholars, Al-Hafidh ibn Asakir, right? Abdul Latif al-Baghdadi, Ibn Qudama al-Maqdisi, scholars, and who else? Knights, good people, good righteous people, people of Mu'ad. Surrounding ourselves with good people is crucial. You cannot do things alone. We need each other. What else?
Our main goal is to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Prophet.
Very powerful. Like that, you saw that Salahuddin's focus was what? It's not really, Jerusalem is big, but it's not the goal. That the main goal is Allah Himself. There is different ways to please Allah. Pick one. Do not lose sight of the big goal. And when we have our eyes on the big goal, everything else things become more in perspective. We don't get angry that often. Because hey, it's not, my biggest goal is Allah. If Allah's happy, what else matters? If Allah's not happy, what else matters? It's a very beautiful moment, alhamdulillah. What else? History, who said that? Now, if you want me to give you an analysis, I hope you can do it by yourself, but you can see the patterns, the archetypes, right? You saw Shawar, you saw the Muslims, you saw the Ridwan, the traitors, right? You saw the one that gave Jerusalem and you look to nowadays and see, I can see the history repeating itself. Because the human being is the same. We have the same heart. And the villain is the same. Shaitan is the same. The same tricks he used, he will use again. Right? So please remember that.
It's not good to be like a bystander, like how you said, just sit around on and watch the news,
Please.
then go do something,
Yes.
even if it's small.
This is, if one message, I'll tell you, Salahuddin said it in his letter, that the problem of Muslims is heedlessness, ghafla. I might not be on the front line. That's okay. But what are you doing? What the only thing that is not allowed is that I sit and I say, I just take care of myself. It's this attitude that destroys all of us. Even forget globally, even as families here, if you think you can raise your children by yourself and you don't need anybody else, guess what? You will not be able to confront the wave that's coming against us. Our kids need to be together. We need each other. We're facing a wave that we cannot stand by ourselves. So one cannot just mind his own business and do nothing. That is the one thing that's secular. Do something. Pick something and do.
What can our leaders of today learn from Salahuddin? What can our leaders of today learn from Salahuddin?
Salahuddin is here. Any comments on that? If Salahuddin comes today, right, again I repeat this, what's the problem? Are we the men to support him? That's the question. I think if Salahuddin comes today, we are going to revolt and break him down. Because the thing he's going to ask us to do is not going to be very pleasant for us. He's not going to ask us to mind our own business and live, peacefully. And he's not. He's about work. And many of us, are we ready for Salahuddin? That's a good thing. I want to just point one thing. Of course, there are some allegations against Salahuddin that I don't want to just go through. There are many claims that people will say, "Oh, Salahuddin is this," and misreading and misquoting, right? And they're not true. Just some of them, the most common. Salahuddin fought Muslims. Yeah, he fought Muslims. What did you want him to do? With a person like Shawar in Egypt, what? You try your best. They keep attacking. What do you do? It's a fitna. Should he just leave them? Should he leave Shawar to take Egypt and give it to the France and he says, "No, he's a Muslim, I can't fight him"? No, sometimes I have to. It's how he fought Muslims. When they run away, he lets them. He didn't want to, but he had to. So this is not, what do you want and what do you expect from him, right? One other thing, I heard this by Sheikh Yasser al-Qadi, that he actually worked for the Ismailis, then betrayed them and took power away from them. Did he even wanted to work for them? They picked him, this is one, right? He didn't even want to go. But second, yes, it was the plan of Nuruddin Zengi. It's not a betrayal. Egypt was under the Ismailis. They plotted to remove the Ismailis from power. Is that bad?
No.
What's bad in this? If you have a bad, would you like Egypt today to be an Ismaili city? Ismaili country? No. And if the Ismailis control Egypt, it's my duty to do something to save Egypt from them. So of course, what's the problem? We'll join, we'll destroy the regime from inside. Is that bad?
No.
They had a plan. Why is it bad? It's actually, as the scholars of Sunnah, they thank Salahuddin and Nuruddin Zengi for doing this. Right? So it's not true at all. Right? Nuruddin and Salahuddin utilize scholars as the means of propaganda to take their goals. See, it was all a plot. You think so? So praying the whole night is what? Propaganda? Learning Sahih Bukhari in the midst of the battlefield is doing this as a propaganda? Really? Come on. They were interested sincerely, and this is what the West can't understand. They cannot really see that there are good people. All people have to be motivated by what? Greed. No, there are some people not motivated by greed. When Salahuddin died, they discovered he does not have enough money for his own body. Salahuddin never paid zakah once in his life. Why? The money comes in, it goes out. He doesn't have money for his own shroud. Is this a person whose propaganda means and power and love of status and wealth? No. I mean, and they say the same about the Prophet ﷺ and Umar ibn Khattab and Abu Bakr. I'm sorry, you should not fall for this, right? The rift between Nuruddin and Salahuddin, was there really a rift? Yes. But it's not what they make you think it is, that they were fighting, they differed in certain opinions. But Salahuddin always loved and respected Nuruddin even after he died. You saw what he did with his daughter and right? Oh, Salahuddin used to drink wine. Is this true? Yes. As a kid he used to drink wine, but he repented. What's the problem? Actually it gives hope. If I today see a young boy drinking wine or taking drugs, you can be the next Salahuddin. There is a concept of tawbah. It's not bad. It actually gives us hope. The same person that when he was young used to drink wine, woke up, especially when he went with his uncle to Egypt, decided to repent, decided to be Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, the one that prays Qiyam, gives all his money in charity, prays in Jama'ah for 40 years. It's the same person. So do not lose hope. Right? Okay, I'll leave you with this lesson. This is like for me to everyone here, right? The Muslim ruler's worst crime is not they steal our money, it's not the treason of the Muslims. They do one thing nowadays that I think is the key killer for Muslims. To pitify the masses. What does that mean? I took this from my brother, by the way. Because he told me one time, you know why I hate them? Speaking about the rulers. You know why I hate them? And I said, why? He said, they made me a pig. You know what he meant? They controlling the Islamic institutions, depriving me of scholars, depriving me of tazkiyah. I, myself, turn to what? What happens when you don't learn Quran? What happens when you don't attend sessions? What happens when there's no shaykh around to teach? I degrade. My heart becomes sick. I become the pig. So saying, I am greedy. I have envy. There is no hospital. There is no scholars to go to. They deprived me from the treatment. So they made me a pig. The problem now is not them. Even if you remove them, I am the greedy one now. Right? So what this means is the following. The worst crime that we have is when you have a leader taking control of Islamic institutions. If you take al-Azhar in Egypt, how can the ruler of Egypt be the one to appoint Shaykh al-Azhar? Tell me, what do you call this? The Azhar should not be under the state, should not be under the control of the government. It needs to be free. You know, checks and balances. You cannot control al-Azhar. You cannot control the Shaykh of al-Azhar. You cannot control his salary. And then make his salary $20 a month. Such a low salary that nobody wants to become a sheikh. Everybody, the top minds of Egypt are either engineers or doctors. If you are the straight A student, you will never go to Azhar. I mean, and your parents will tell you, you go to Azhar, what are you going to become? A qari? What are you going to do in your life? This is a crime. This is really a crime. That we took those great Islamic institutions, secularism, that they only teach Quran and Hadith and things unrelevant. Who says that those things are unrelevant and they don't study other sciences? And then their salary is very low. Nobody wants to go there. So our Islamic institutions needs to be free. This is another very important message, inshallah. Like, any other questions?
So I know that Salahuddin went to the free school that was that they built for people to become great. Do they still have it, or was it abolished at a certain time?
Yeah, so first of all, the Nizamiya schools, you know, Nizam al-Mulk, the schools, those schools stayed all the way till the Mongol time, right? And those schools kept for centuries. Nowadays, there is no Nizamiya schools. The institutions, al-Azhar, for example, in Egypt, is still there. The Madaris of Salahuddin and al-Ashrafiyya and in Damascus, and they're still there. But what's the problem? Controlled by who? Remember what I said?
The government.
When Salahuddin did the schools, his method was what? Here is the school, here is the waqf. Waqf meaning what? I have a big place. It spends on the school. And it's outside of me. And now the scholars, the students, the government is not involved. The waqf spends on them. And scholars are respected. Scholars are free. Speak your mind. Now what happened today? The awqaf is under the control of the government. And I say it openly, one of the most corrupt things in Egypt today is the waqf. people are there, employees, and it's all about making money for myself. You have great wealth, and all the money is going where? Bribes and this and that. It became useless. Right? The schools, what do I say? They're not given. I'll ask you this. Al-Aqsa is a great institution. Great scholars. Have you ever seen a book from Al-Aqsa here? Anybody of you goes to the website of Al-Azhar for maybe some Egyptians. Where is Al-Azhar? You don't think we have mines in Egypt? We deprive the Ummah, wallahi, if you only know the amount of knowledge that people have there. But I saw, you go there, it's almost the government they don't want you to hear them. They put hurdles in front of them. They don't, why? Because it's dangerous. It is Al-Azhar that always led it. When the French took Egypt in 1798, it was Al-Azhar that stood up and led all the revolutions. And so they knew very well, we need to take care of that one. It's very dangerous. So by putting the scholars in my pocket, controlling their wealth, and making sure that their lowest IQ, the institution is there. But it faces a lot of challenges. But there is still good people. How to revive that, or should we do a new one? That's a new question for your generation.
So Jerusalem fell during the later Crusades before the Mongols came?
Yes, so what happened, it's actually, if you read it, you will be very sad. So yes, it fell, right? And it didn't fall. It was given. And that was the irony. 300,000 could not take Jerusalem from Salahuddin. 300 were given Jerusalem, here take it. And then later, they fought and they took Jerusalem back. And then guess what happened? The same one that took Jerusalem back went back to the France and said, I'll give you Jerusalem if you help me attack my brother in Egypt. So it became almost like a game, a negotiation board kind of. Right? Till eventually the Mamluks of Egypt came, Photos and Bebars, and they were really powerful. Like the samurai of the East, if you will. And they took care of the situation.
I know it's always like a difficult question to answer, but any call to action, so we're learning, how things are done, but and obviously there's a lot of parallels to today, but I still feel like there's this still big question mark. Is it protesting? Is it making yourself a better Muslim? Is it donating? Is it what? Based on everything that's happened in the past 2 years, have you come up with anything new or?
Number one, never lose hope. Never stop dreaming, never lose hope. Never say it's hopeless. This is one thing I will tell all of you. There's always hope. We will be victorious again. We had worse days. Right? Even if I don't know how, do something. Do you think Nizam al-Mulk really, when he did the schools, do you think he really foresees what is going to happen? Really? You think Imam al-Ghazali, when he started writing his book about philosophy, really? You think Salahuddin, when he went with his uncle, really so? Right? So we need to have hope and work even if we don't see the how. This is number one. Number two, please, the most important thing, I'm going to emphasize it again, what we cannot afford is to sit on the side and do nothing. Get skills, get involved, start with the spiritual path, start with dua, start with yourself, start with your family. This is extremely important. 3, it's a long-term mission. Jerusalem was not freed in 1 year or 2 years. But I need to work now. Maybe it's my kids or their grandkids that will free Jerusalem, but I need to start now. You plant the tree, you might not eat the fruits. My grandchildren might eat the fruits. So we have to have that long-term mentality. 4, now it is we sit together and see what is the best strategy. That's the ibadah. Right? It's the ibadah. Whether it's demonstrations, whether it's do we need to make a big walk here in the United States and use the money to stand against the Zionist machine? And there are many ideas. Let's think. But the one thing, don't sit on the side and do nothing. Right? The exact steps we can talk about. But one thing clear for me, everybody work on yourself. This is the long-term goal. It is the greed, it is the envy, it is attachment to the life of this world that shackles us from speaking the truth. And this is the message of Salahuddin, if you remember. Okay, I will stop here, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. جزاكم الله خير.